So you're keen to upgrade your studio and you're not sure where to start. And this is a pretty tricky subject to cover because there's so many variables and it really depends how you want to use your studio space and what you're trying to do. But I'm going to try and give you some sound advice on how to best invest your money back into your studio and where to start doing that without wasting too much money along the way. So before we get started, make sure you hit that like button and subscribe to the channel so you can keep up with all my latest videos. Okay, let's make a couple assumptions. You've got some monitors, you've got an interface, a couple of mics, you're already doing some recording at home, and you're ready to take things to the next level. And you're wondering, what should I invest in first? Acoustic treatment, of course. Anytime you comment on something on the internet and you say, what should I get first? Someone has to jump in and say, acoustic treatment. And they're not wrong. Acoustic treatment is so important. So make sure you invest some money in that before you start looking at this next stuff. But let's assume you've already done that. Your space sounds pretty good. What do you do next? Preamps, microphones, equalizers, compressors. Do I upgrade my monitors? All of that stuff. The first thing I would suggest is microphones. So have a look at your microphone collection and make sure you have a couple of good quality microphones that are great workhorses in your studio. Now, some of you might be saying, oh, what about your interface? Shouldn't you upgrade that first? If you've got any half decent interface, let's just say like Focusrite or the SSL stuff, Universal Audio, you don't have to spend heaps of money on this. Any kind of semi-decent interface is gonna be okay. So back to microphones. You wanna have a good stereo pair of microphones to use in your studio. So you're probably not gonna like this next thing that I'm gonna say, but save up and buy quality gear. Don't waste your money on budget equipment that you're going to replace in a year's time because you weren't happy with it. Just save your money, work towards good quality stuff. It's going to be a little slower, but in the long run, you're going to actually save money because you won't be buying so many things and replacing them. And I did this. I bought so many budget things along the way, never happy with them, ended up selling them, buying something else. And in the long run, you just lose out. Like you lose money by doing that. You should just go for quality gear if you can. Save your money and get the good stuff. So something like a pair of C414s is great for overheads on drums, acoustic guitars, just a great workhorse set of mics, or something like the Neumann KM184s. Great pencil condensers, they don't have a lot of self noise, great on overheads for drums, excellent on acoustic guitars. You just can't go too wrong with mics like that. And you also want to consider vocal mics for your studio, because obviously when you're recording songs, vocals are the most important thing. So I would definitely recommend having one good dynamic microphone and one good condenser microphone. So something like the SM7B, every studio should have one of these. And this microphone stupidly outbeats really expensive microphones all the time. So a great mic, especially if you're in a room that's not treated that well, this is going to work much better than a condenser microphone. And then something like a nice condenser mic. So the one I'm talking into the moment, I've got the Neumann TLM103. I think this is a great choice for a vocal microphone. It just works really well, sounds great on most vocalists. And then something maybe like your WA251, where this is like a more affordable version of something like the TF51, the Telefunken, or you know, the Holy Grail Elam 251. So they're not your cheapest microphones, but they're going to give you good results that you can rely on. When you put that up in front of vocalists, you know you're going to get something good. So say you've got good mics, what's next for you then? I would say start looking at outboard preamps. So time to stop relying on your interfaces preamps and start looking at something a bit more boutique. The first thing that I bought was a Great River preamp, and I went into the world of 500 series gear. So knowing that I would add more to that as I went along the way. Now, you don't have to go crazy. You don't have to have racks and racks of preamps. I would even just say start with one good preamp, maybe with the idea of eventually getting a second one so you can use it in stereo pairs on stuff like overheads or acoustic guitar stereo tracking and things like that. And if you do pick up an SM7B, you're going to want a good preamp to run this. So something like the Great River preamp is a really great choice for a mic like this because it has a lot of gain and it's a very quiet preamp. It doesn't have a lot of self noise, so you can actually run this really well. If you don't have a quality preamp, you're going to want to get something like a cloud lifter to put before this if you're running just into like a digital interface. So let's say you've got a nice pair of preamps. What's next for you? I would be saying start looking at a nice vocal compressor. Don't worry about compression for drums. Don't worry about compression for your guitars. Like, there's so many great plugins that can do this stuff. But get yourself a really nice compressor for vocals. Vocals are so dynamic. And when you're tracking vocals, if you can compress them a little bit on the way in with a good compressor, it's going to do half the work for you. You're not going to have to work that hard on your vocals post. Now, I wish I could go back in time and tell my younger self, save the money and buy something good, because I bought so many various pieces of gear along the way and just like tried the budget stuff. But I was never totally pleased with the results I got. And I would even say like just using plugins would just yield better results. I would personally stay away from the budget kind of compressors and equalizers and stuff like that. Like, just don't waste your money on it. Just keep using your plugins until you've saved up your money, and get something good like the Audioscape Opto. That's not even like a real LA2A. I'm not going to go tell you to save up like 7 grand or 10 grand, whatever it is, to buy one of those. Like, the guys at Audioscape make some really nice sounding gear. I have had a couple of pieces of theirs. I still have, like, I've got their D-Comp, the Opto, and a Blue Stripe, and I'm not sponsored by them to try and sell this stuff to you, but I'm just saying that I've used loads of different levels of gear, so the budget stuff and upwards, and their stuff just sonically sounds great. Whereas on some of the cheaper stuff, you know, it's kind of exciting at first, but down the line you start to realize, oh, this stuff isn't actually doing anything that much better than a plugin could do. So I know that was like quite a long little spiel there, but save up and buy something nice. Get yourself something like an 1176 or an Opto. You're not going to go wrong with either of those types of compressors, and they're perfect for vocals, and they work well on bass. You can use them with your drums, use them with your guitars, but I think the focus should be, if you're tracking multiple things in your studio, vocals is definitely the one that you need to make sure you have great sounding mics, preamps, and a compressor. You just need a really good vocal chain. That's the thing everyone listens to at the front of a mix. That's the thing that you are going to get clients in with having really good sounding mixes, but with good vocals as well. So that is definitely where you need to be focusing on getting the best sound. And like, you know, adding EQs and stuff like that, that would come after for me. Like, I think EQing with outboard gear is fun, but it's dangerous at the same time too, because you can mess stuff up when you're tracking if you are too silly with an EQ and there's nothing you can do about it later. So at least with compression and a good compressor, a little bit of gain reduction, you're not going to mess it up. You're actually going to improve the sound. So I would not worry too much about going down the road of EQs and stuff like that until you are established with all this other stuff. And then that's sort of like a bit of fun that you can start looking into and adding to your chain to see if you can improve your sound on the way in without messing it up too much. Let's assume you got that. Like, I've got a preamp, I've got a good mic, I've got a compressor, it's sounding good. What's next for me? I would suggest adding stuff to your mix bus. So maybe like a nice mix bus compressor or an EQ for your mix bus. But you don't have to go too crazy, and you can watch my video on the mix bus magic if you haven't already, and I run you through what I have on my mix bus setup. And I find that adds so much to my mix, rather than just like little elements that I would be like sending my mix in and out of. And you can get into that stuff down the road. You can add compressors to your drum bus and this and that if you really want to go down the road of analog gear. But if you just want a taste of it, definitely start with the mix bus. So you're going to get your whole mix going through some analog gear and adding a little bit of that color and fun to your productions. There's so many things you can spend your money on in the studio. You could be like, oh, I need a control surface, or I need a couple of different DIs, and I need this and that and this and that. You really just want stuff that you're going to use often. And if I'm being honest, my control surface on my desk, I hardly use that anymore. Initially, I was like, I'm going to use this all the time. I can't wait to do that. And I don't use it all the time. Like, and that's just like a piece of gear that I could sell and it'd be like, whatever. Like, it's not going to affect my workflow and how quickly I get jobs done. So I think there's things like that. Like, when you are putting money into your studio, try and think about, what am I actually going to use? What am I going to get the most bang for my buck out of? What pieces of gear are going to be used every session? That's the stuff you want to get first. And that's the stuff that's going to improve your workflow. All the little things where you're like, I use that like once a month or, you know, every blue moon, they're not really going to improve your productions that much or the time that you spend in your studio. They're just kind of like things that you got because you're addicted to gear and it's fun. So try and avoid those purchases. You're going to fall into the trap no matter what, but just try and avoid the stuff that you don't need that much until you have everything that you need, and then you can start being like, oh, I might get one of those, or I might get one of those. There's definitely nothing wrong with that stuff. Just make sure you have all the things you really need before the gear addiction syndrome kicks in hard. So that's my 2 cents on where and how you should invest your money in your studio. You're not going to be able to do this overnight. It's going to take a little while to do all these steps to get from where you are to where you want to be. And particularly if you do it like me, I never took out a loan or anything like that. I just started slowly investing back into my gear and building up my studio that way. So I hope you can take something away from this and help steer you in the right direction for how you can start investing back into your studio and building it up to something a little bit more professional and getting better results that you're happier with. Thanks for watching, guys. Hope you found this useful. Make sure you subscribe to the channel and stick around so you can check out how to EQ the perfect snare coming up in the next video.